So let's move on to our first, I guess, fundamental concept. And this is a concept called variables. And you may have heard of variables when you took algebra, but this has nothing to do with that. So I stand by my word that all Matthew needs to know are those four basic arithmetic expressions of plus, minus, times, and division. This has nothing to do with algebra. So the best analogy, well, I debated it. So we have a dean of instruction. His name is Peter. And we spent a good 45 minutes debating what's the best analogy for a variable. This is what we like doing. We like debating these kinds of educational techniques. So we came up with like 10 different versions. And the one that we narrowed it down to 2, and I'm just going to go with one of them. A variable is like a nickname. Okay? So I'm going to start over. Okay. Here I wrote Fred equals 1. What this means is that I am giving the number 1 a nickname. I'm calling him Fred. This is not algebra, where in algebra we'd be stating this would be stating a truth, that Fred is 1. That's not what we're doing. We're saying I'm giving 1 a nickname, I'm naming him Fred. Because wouldn't you want to name your number Fred? So that's what we're doing. We're giving him a nickname. We'll see, it'll become clear over time why on earth we'd want to give a number a nickname. The short answer, though, of why variables are useful is because we can use these nicknames to basically save this information for later. Think of it as like, here we go. I'm going to social security number. Now, I'm not putting my real one down here. And I'm giving that number 555555 the nickname of SSN. So this way I could store it for later and refer to it. And if I'm like, what was my social security number? Again, I don't remember, but I know I call it SSN. So I can just easily refer to that and be able to grab that number. Again, this will be clearer as we proceed. But again, think of a variable as a nickname. Let's go back to Fred. Fred equals 1. We're giving the number 1 the nickname Fred. What happens if I now say P Fred? Well, what do you think might happen? So there's either two choices. It's either going to say Fred or it's going to say 1. And the answer is that it's going to say 1. The reason being is that we're using these nicknames in order to be able to grab that number that it's referring to. We don't really care about the nickname itself. We're only using the nicknames to remember the number that it's referring to. So when we say P Fred, it will say 1. Whenever we say a variable name, whenever we mention it, Ruby immediately replaces it with whatever number it's referring to. As soon as I say Fred, Ruby says, oh, you mean 1. If I say P Fred, it's as if I said P1. Because Ruby says, I know you don't care about Fred. You don't care about that name. The reason you gave 1 a name is to remember the number 1. When you say Fred, I'll give you 1. So P Fred is as if I said P1. I'm going to say here, Fred equals 7. And then P Fred again. What do you think might happen? I can't hear? It's going to print 7. Well, first it's going to print 1, and then it's going to print 7. Yeah, so basically on line 1, we say, let's give 1 the nickname Fred. And then it prints it out. P Fred, which is 1, so it's at P1, it prints it out, as you can see here. And then we say Fred equals 7. This is what's called overriding a variable. Basically, it says, I know I named 1 Fred, but now I'm changing my mind. I want to name 7 Fred. So here on in, when I say Fred, I mean 7. Even though before Fred meant 1, now, henceforth, Fred means 7. So now when I say P Fred on line 4, it's as if I said P7. So you're able to override a variable in Ruby anyway. Some languages you cannot, but in Ruby you can. Any questions about that? let's bring in two different nicknames here. So Fred, let's start Fred out with being 7. And now we're going to name 3 Tim. So now we have two variables at play here. I gave the number 7 the nickname Fred, and I gave the number 3 the nickname Tim. And I say P Fred, and I say P Tim. What do you think might happen when I run this code? Yeah, if I heard you correctly. So it prints 7, it prints 3. You can create as many variables as you want in a single file. So you could have thousands of variables going on. You're giving numbers nicknames right and left. Keep them as pets. Okay, now let me blow your mind. What happens here? So I say Fred is 7, Tim is 3, and then I say P Fred plus Tim. What do you think might happen? 10. So it's good to know that people here know as much as math as I do. They can add. So again, we don't care about the nicknames themselves. Whenever we invoke the variable name, whenever we mention the variable name, we're just mentioning the nickname to get at the number that it's referring to. So when I say P Fred plus Tim, that is the exact equivalent of me saying P7 plus 3. And if I just said P7 plus 3, I would get 10. So here too, when I say P Fred plus Tim, it prints out 10 to the terminal. Does that make sense? Okay. It's not a simple concept. It seems simple, but it's not, because it's like you have to remember that whenever I'm referring to the nickname, I don't care about the nickname. I always care about the number that it's referring to. Let's do this. So we have Fred equals 7, Tim equals 3, and then we throw a monkey wrench here, and I say Gina is Fred plus Tim. So now what happens if I print Gina? What will I get? I still get 10. So you don't always have to directly make a nickname for a number. I could say Gina's a nickname for Fred plus Tim. Again, the reason that works is because when I say Gina equals Fred plus Tim, that's the equivalent of saying Gina equals 7 plus 3. So I'm assigning that result of Fred plus Tim and giving that result 10 the nickname Gina. So Gina is now a nickname for the number 10. Yeah. Okay. Now this one might throw you for a loop, or it might not. Gina equals Tim plus Tim. What happens when I print Gina?
6.
That is true. Better be true, otherwise everything I know about coding is wrong. Okay, yes, it is 6. Why does that work? Because, I guess, could someone explain to me why does that happen? Yeah, Tim is 3. So when I say Gina equals Tim plus Tim, that is the exact equivalent of me saying Gina equals 3 plus 3. There's nothing wrong with using Tim twice in the same line, because it's just a nickname for 3. If I call you by your nickname twice, I'm just referring to you twice. There's nothing wrong with that. I guess it could get annoying though. Okay. Now, what happens when I say Tina equals Jim plus Helen? That's right. I get an error. And what line is my error on? It's on line 3. And it says undefined local variable or method Helen. Saying, I don't know what Helen is. You never mentioned Helen before. You mentioned Fred, you mentioned Tim. You gave those are nicknames for various numbers. But I don't know, you never mentioned Helen. So this error message that starts out with undefined local variable or method whatever is one of the most common error messages you'll see. It basically means that your code references something that's never been mentioned before previously. So Ruby's like, I don't know what that is. Okay, what happens? I'm going to erase everything here. What happens if I say this? 4 equals Fred. I don't expect you to know this, but what do you guess would happen? I guess you're all running it and you're going to cheat, but okay, that's fine. You get an error message. And this one is actually one of those error messages that might be really hard to decipher. Syntax error, unexpected equals, expecting end of input, 4 equals Fred. That is frankly not very clear as to what the problem is. But I'll explain to you what the problem is. The problem is that whenever we create a variable, the rule created by arbitrary humans who made the Ruby language is that when you make a variable, the variable name always goes on the left-hand side of the equal sign, and the number, the value that you're assigning, that you're creating the nickname for, goes on the right-hand side. Here we've switched that, and that's illegal. We have not destroyed the internet or the world, or even Chicago, but we have committed an error. Variables are always, you have to start, the name goes on the left-hand side, it's Fred equals 4. 4 equals Fred is just not a thing. They could have made it a thing. The creators of Ruby could have said, oh, you could do it either way. But they didn't. They said you always have to, when creating a variable, you put the nickname on the left-hand side of the equal sign and the number on the right-hand side.